And we are recording here. Hello, my name is Brad Bodnar-Chuck, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it happen and the community that drives this industry forward. On this podcast, we sit down and chat with some of the most exciting, inspiring, and innovative minds that make up one of the most dynamic industries that there is today. And today, I have the pleasure of being joined by none other than Ioana Negelescu. Welcome to the show.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you
really
so much.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, I challenge myself to say all of my guests' last names, just like to pay respect. And I was super nervous about your name. Hopefully I did okay.
Yeah, it was perfect.
But I appreciate before we turn the mics on, you helping me with that pronunciation. Thank you so much for being open to coming on to the show. I'm really excited about this. I have been dying to get outside of my bubble a bit, if you will, in regards to learning about how people are doing it differently in different spaces. And I think for me, and maybe you can speak to this as well in your space, in your industry locally, it's very easy to get caught up in what's going on where you're at and not really be open to what's going on in other parts of the world. So when I came across your profile on social media, and then I saw what you do in regards to kind of what you call yourself in regards to being a restaurant strategist, I believe you say. I just thought, what a cool opportunity for us to get together and share some ideas, because I think as well, that's what this industry needs globally, is more opportunities and platforms like this for people like you and I to get together and share ideas, share what's worked, what hasn't worked. And that's where I think we really push things forward globally. So let's get right into it. Let's just help me and the listeners understand your story. Like, how did you get into food? Why are you doing what you do now? If you guys don't follow Ioana on social media, her photos are amazing. Your plates look beautiful, and it's berries and spice, I believe, on Instagram. Yeah. And so please go out and follow Ioana. But tell myself and listeners your story. How did you come to be a restaurant strategist and so into food?
Okay, so well, first of all, I came from a family where food was always on the table and it was always fantastic, but nobody was really, deeply, truly passionate about it. Apart from my grandpa, but unfortunately he died quite a long time ago, and unfortunately I didn't get to learn from him so much. But anyway, there was always food. It was always fantastic. And there are so many dishes that kind of defined my childhood and that I've actually been trying to replicate and kind of innovate a little bit lately. But the first time I actually tried to cook something was when I was about 13, I think. We had like this international fair at high school. So I went to a French high school and it was very like international. Mm-hmm. And basically everybody prepared a traditional dish from their country, and we all tried bits and bobs from everyone, and it was really exciting. And basically I tried this Moroccan dessert, which I really loved. It was really sweet and really honey-ish. And then I went home and I was like, okay, I want to just try and make it. And basically I mixed flour and water and I fried that, and then I added honey onto it. So that was kind of the first thing that I ever cooked. And then when I was about 16, 17, I started making pizza. But my family hated it. Whenever I was making pizza, they were like, no. And the reason for that is because I was topping my pizzas with everything possible and with really overpriced ingredients as well. So, my pizzas were not sustainable at all from a business perspective. But yeah, anyway, it was kind of an idea that my friends had about how I should open this pizza bar where you buy slice, not buy pizza, because it would have been way too expensive. Of course, that never actually happened. But then I kind of, limited my my cooking abilities to very basic stuff. Like I was making salads, and I was making this pasta dish, and I was making a Jamie Oliver chocolate tart, and that was pretty much all I could do. And in uni, let's not even talk about it. I ate takeout pizza and fries all the time. But basically, what really got me into cooking was when I got together with my boyfriend, and he's also a foodie. And in our first month, I was trying to, constantly impress him. So I was trying to, invent little recipes. And at some point, I can't remember what we were lacking in our kitchen, and what we had, and we were lacking bread. So, I had flour, water, and a little bit of baking powder. So not even yeast or anything like that. So we just, put together a quick bread, baked it, and it was decent enough, to replace what we didn't have. And I was actually in Vienna at that time, and shops close here really early. So there was no, possibility of going out and buying it. So I kind of had to do it. And after that, I moved to Edinburgh, where I lived for about 3 years. And I did my master's, and my boyfriend was doing his PhD at the point. And basically my master's, I had a lot of free time because we had very few lectures, and I was studying from home a lot. So I ended up, doing all the cooking and kind of learning by doing, and kind of experimenting using my own taste buds and whatever ingredients I could find. But it was actually mostly my boyfriend who taught me the techniques, the basic techniques. For example, the fact that you always add the spices first to get all the flavor. In my family, I don't know, sometimes I learned to just add everything at the end to make sure that the meat was cooked, first, and then add all the aromatics. Mm-hmm. I really got into Indian food at that point. He had this fantastic recipe for a fish curry that I started making a lot. And then I bought my first cookbook, which was actually a curry cookbook. And I started making that a lot. And then basically I started kind of a challenge where I said, okay, I don't want to cook the same thing again. So for a whole year, I tried to cook completely different things. And that was exciting, but it wasn't necessarily, great food, mm-hmm. Obviously. I didn't really know much about technique, and there was plenty of knowledge that I lacked. So anyway, I started this blog, Berries and Spice. First of all, it was, my terrible cooking back in the days when it was comfort food, boring stuff that you find on millions of other websites. And slowly, I got more interested in fine dining. I started buying more cookbooks. As you can see, behind me, I've got an enormous collection. I started discovering more and more restaurants. And basically that really got me to love this industry. So I started switching the focus of my blog a little bit more towards this fine dining side of restaurants, and I started learning myself about cooking techniques and trying to experiment following different things that I was tasting in various restaurants. And then I actually realized that what I love is not cooking, but actually what I really love. And, everybody was asking me, when are you opening a restaurant? And I was like, actually, no, I'm not going to open a restaurant. It's not my type of thing. I would love to work with restaurants. I love chefs. To me, they're my rock stars. And I love talking to them, and I love finding out their stories. And my general interest for business kind of led me into this direction of, focusing more and more about on food, the restaurant industry, mm-hmm. and how restaurants operate and so on. And I'm actually originally from Romania. And, in Romania, food is very important, but it's very badly cooked most of the time. So, they use a lot of these MSG-based powders to flavor everything and do things very quickly. Okay, let's add a bit of flour to the sauce to thicken it super quickly, and, that's it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and I mean, it's just a really fabulous industry that I fell in love with. And I feel like the fact that I'm Romanian and the fact that I live in Vienna at the moment is really an opportunity for me to explore what's happening in, Central and Eastern Europe, where things, okay, Vienna is super developed and it's got fabulous restaurants and an amazing fine dining scene. But a lot of other countries like Romania don't yet. They're starting to, but they don't yet. So this is kind of what made me really excited about this industry and about, the business side of things. Oh, and, of course, the topic of sustainability and doing things a little bit, in a better way. And being a decent human being, kind of like being a good restaurant manager and doing good for your employees, for the community, for your country, and so on.
I like that. That's a great story. And I appreciate you being so candid and sharing that. One thing you mentioned that stuck with me was one of the very first things you mentioned was you and your boyfriend being foodies. Like when you first met, you kind of labeled yourself with that. And the term foodie now in North America, at least, is almost, it has like a negative stigma attached to it. Foodie here means you probably take too many photos of your food. And I think foodie has become almost like it's like it frustrates the industry, if you know what I mean. Like chefs get frustrated by that. Is foodie in Europe still a celebrated and kind of cool term to label yourself with, or is it starting to kind of lose its steam as well?
Well, I feel that, personally, I feel like I don't quite like the word foodie, but I still use it in the context of, food lover. That's actually the better word for it.
Yeah.
I do think that a lot of people do use it for, just food love.
Yeah, it's cool. And can we talk a bit about the photos that you do take, because I do think they're beautiful. So are you working in a restaurant right now, or is this photos you're taking at home? Like the plates that you're producing are gorgeous.
So basically my Instagram is a mix of restaurant photos and photos of dishes that I cook at home whenever I get the chance, because I do have a full-time job on the side that's taking most of my time.
Okay.
And it's not in a restaurant. I work for a digital marketing agency in London, so I work from home, which is very convenient because I'm home and I have a bit more flexibility to follow my hobbies. But I would say, they're definitely a mix of restaurants and food that I cook at home. I have this very strong belief that Instagram was made for, phone photos. So I never use any other camera apart from my phone. So I try to, when I go to a nice restaurant, I try to ask for, the best lit table, or try to go for lunch just to get good light and so on.
And do you find that is that being celebrated or accepted, or are people rolling their eyes and they're like, oh my God, it's another Instagrammer? Or is that quite not hit critical mass yet? Whereas here, I think restaurants, although they're catering to it, just in regards to how even plates are being conceptualized, chefs are now thinking about how will it look from a bird's eye view on an iPhone. But do you feel like when you approach either a maitre d' or a manager and ask for a well-lit table, do they roll their eyes, or they just do it?
To be honest, usually when I do ask for a table, it means that I've previously talked to the restaurant and kind of said, look, I'm really interested in you. And
And are they excited to have you in? And are we talking about comped meals, like meals that are paid for you now? Are you coming in and like almost like a food critic type?
No, actually I do like to go on my own and kind of be really honest with myself and with what I write. So I would never, just go somewhere because somebody pays me to do it and then I have to write a review. And for example, like I don't actually, because I have a lot of restaurant reviews on my blog, but I don't ever write any negative ones because I don't feel like I'm, imposing enough in this industry. Somebody like Jay Rayner, for example, who works for The Observer, The Guardian, he's writing in a super well-known and well-read magazine and etc. So, if he criticizes a place, then it's somehow really
not great.
more important. And yeah. So yeah.
I'm intrigued to know from you, what is hot right now? What is trending right now in Vienna? In Vancouver right now, and I think actually Canadian wide, and I'll share something with you. So our government just released our, what are we calling it? It's like almost like our food pyramid, like what we recommend as a country you eat, being the population in Canada. And before this reiteration of it, it was heavily focused on dairy and protein from things like beef. So, and then even they had fruit juices was considered to be a health drink. They've now taken fruit juices off and they've labeled it as a sugary beverage. They only recommend now you drink water. So this is what the government's saying, which is great. But then what we're now seeing is what they've produced is a very plant-based diet suggestion by the government. So you're looking at like 80% leafy greens and vegetables, and then 20% lean proteins, and then like low fat or actually I don't think it's low fat, just like full fat dairy makes up the rest. So what we're seeing now in Vancouver, and what we've seen for a while, and Vancouver's pretty progressive. It's very much like a hippie culture, if you will, like very health conscious. There's not many French restaurants, if you will, because there's a lot of butter in French cooking, as you know. So this city is very, very health focused. It's very outdoorsy and very progressive. But plant-based has been now for a few years a big thing here. And we're seeing restaurants that invested in that years ago really flourish now. And we're seeing new restaurants come into the space. And even restaurants before they didn't have that option are now expanding their menu or replacing items on their menu to be more plant-based, meaning vegan. And that's something as well that's really interesting is they no longer call themselves or call it vegan. It's now plant-based. So that's even changed in the last probably 2 years. So paint a picture for me what the scene is like, or what's trending right now in Vienna, where plant-based is super huge here in Vancouver and Canada wide. What is really popular in Austria?
So I'll cover a bit about Vienna, but I think I'll go a little bit more in depth into Romania, because actually I've only been here for a year.
Okay,
so
cool.
It's pretty recent. And I find that perhaps, showing you two sides of the story would be interesting. So in Vienna, for example, I've met so many people who are vegetarian, and perhaps more than in any other country I've lived in before. And what's very interesting is that when you go to the supermarket, for example, meat is really expensive. It's not something you can really afford on a daily basis. And at the same time, which was a surprise, because in Romania and in the UK, where I've lived before, bioproducts tended to be very expensive. Whereas here, the margin is really, really small. So, most bioproducts are actually pretty much the same price as normal products.
And sorry, Ioana, when you say bioproducts, what do you mean?
Organically grown.
Got you. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot more consciousness around this. And in terms of restaurants, I mean, I've had a fabulous fine dining experience where most dishes were vegetarian. And that was really exciting, because I actually think that, this new vegetarian, as I like to call it, is really a big trend at the moment. Is, how can we make vegetarian food exciting beyond, the classical like risotto and mac and cheese or something like that. So I really think there's so much to discover. And, in these countries like Austria, and it's the same in Romania, we grow so many vegetables. It's just so sad to not use them more and not, really showcase what the terroir has to offer. But for example, to compare it a little bit to Romania, so I would say that your average Romanian will eat meat every single day. If I talk to my grandma, she'll say she cannot live without meat. And I'm like, yeah, but there are so many vegetarian dishes that are so good. And she's like, no, but it's not filling enough. I really believe in this flexitarian diet. I really believe that, you know, a better way to take care of ourselves and of the environment is to reduce our consumption of meat, to try to focus on more organic products. Although apparently I've read recently that these organic products actually are worse for the environment than non-organic products. So that's another question to ask. And it's always tricky about like this topic. I think is always tricky, and I don't even know what the proper answer is, but I guess you just need to be a bit more conscious. And as a restaurant, I do think it's your responsibility to try to provide your customers with healthier and better options. And I think it happens way too frequently. And I actually read a couple of articles about this as well, that restaurants actually, you know, especially these fine dining type of restaurants, like you said, you know, about French cooking and all the ton of butter, that, you know, a tiny, tiny little dish can have an enormous amount of calories just because you use so much fat and so much meat and so on. So yeah, I think it's somehow restaurants that have to do it. I think it's the government that has to do it. In the UK, for example, they've got a sugar tax now, which I think is a fabulous thing. And I think it should be implemented all over the place.
Sugar tax, explain that. I don't know that one. Explain that to me. What are they doing? How are they taxing sugar?
So basically they add a higher tax for high sugar products. So like fizzy drinks and stuff.
Oh, so it'd be like here locally, where in Canada, like we tax the heck out of alcohol and cigarettes and those kind of things. Oh, cool. Yeah. I like that. Very progressive. Talk to me a bit about the restaurant strategist hat that you wear. What does that look like in practice? I'm assuming you feel very, very comfortable in the back of house, working with chefs and working with food. Do you dive into the front of house as well? I saw on your website that you had an article in regards to staffing, I believe it was, that you posted. So do you, when you're wearing the hat of being a restaurant strategist, are you both offering assistance front of house and back of house? Is this a holistic business that you're offering, or you feel more comfortable, or is it more niche towards back of house and chefs?
So I would say, let me go back a little bit. And so basically, when I did my master's in business, and before I did my master's, when I was living in Vienna, that was like 5 and a bit years ago, I got to work at this fantastic place called Impact Hub. You may have heard of it. It's basically all a support system. It's a worldwide thing that basically supports social entrepreneurs. And that got me really into the sustainable business, ethical business side of things. And basically when I left that job, I was like, okay, I want to do my master's in business and be able to put together a business that revolves around me helping businesses to create a better culture focused on happiness and creativity, in order to create, you know, a really positive environment where people feel empowered, where people feel like they can really show their voice, and where they feel comfortable to talk about issues if they've got any, and where they really feel like they can do the best possible work they can. So this, this has been my main interest. Now I do like working with chefs, and I do like working in general with restaurant staff. I do like working with restaurant managers and kind of help that side of the business do better. It's true, I haven't done too much of it. It's mostly, you know, in writing at this point. And I'm kind of trying to find my own voice and trying to discover what I actually really like and value. But in an ideal world, I would like to help restaurants in the Central and Eastern European area to become more sustainable. So, you know, to help them in their efforts to try to find tools, to try to help them find local producers, link them up with farmers and so on. And just, you know, encourage this. There are so many really cool apps and stuff where you can, you know, give away otherwise wasted food, where you can measure your waste, and where there are so many techniques in which you can you reduce waste by repurposing it. And so that's what I would like to do. And on the other hand, I'd also like to help with the staff leadership side of things. And I think restaurants quite often, at least in Europe, I feel don't focus enough on their business from a pure business perspective. So, you know, how a lot of companies focus on creating this fantastic culture that I mentioned before. I feel like restaurants are not yet at that point. And then you end up with really tired, burnt out staff who will quit after 6 months, go somewhere else, quit after 6 months, go somewhere else, and constantly, you know, be unhappy, rather than, you know, focusing as a restaurant manager on creating a really positive culture, on, you know, talking about your staff. I think that's so important, just talking about the people who are actually helping you run your business, and not just, you know, the head chef and not just the front of house, but every single person, from a dishwasher to, you know, your waiter, and absolutely everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's interesting listening to you talk about, this is obviously very high level, what you were just sharing, and very kind of like broad strokes of what you are envisioning and what you do. But you've touched on a few things that are so poignant in regards to what we're experiencing here in North America as well. Is like culture is a big thing. So that's part of my job, and kind of the hill that I'm dying on with my clients is I am coming in there and helping them build that culture. So culture is huge. Culture translates in so many different ways, but the biggest way I think right now is retaining talented and valuable staff, which is such an issue, I think, globally, from hearing what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then something else you mentioned that I thought was really interesting was, I've lost it now, the culture piece, the staffing piece, and there was something else.
Sustainability.
Oh yeah,
maybe?
like sustainability. The waste thing. The waste thing now is huge right now in North America and in Canada, and there are some now major corporations that are really making it their kind of modus operandi to tackle this issue of food waste. And there's some companies that are repurposing food from major sporting events that would traditionally go to waste, and they're repurposing it, pardon me, and then serving it to people that may have a little less and maybe are suffering a bit economically. I just think that's so great that we are tackling that issue, because it's so sad to see beautiful products, whether they're organic or non-organic, or beautiful food, go to waste. So it's great to hear that it's not only happening here in Canada and North America, it was also happening in Europe as well. So that's really inspiring, which is really great.
It's definitely happening more in the UK and in the more Western parts of Europe, I would say. I would say in Central and Eastern Europe, it's starting to become more of a topic, but it's still, you know, at the very beginning.
Let's talk about frustrations. What frustrates you about the industry right now? What are you challenged by in this space?
So, okay, there are so many things. Well, one would be, you know, I don't know how it is in Canada and North America, but I feel like in Europe, everything nowadays has something with truffles and with foie gras. And I know it sounds like, you know, a random type of issue, but I feel like every single restaurant that's kind of trying to make it into the world adds something to the menu that contains truffles or foie gras. And instead of actually focusing on like super simple, affordable ingredients that grow in your country, instead of, you know, trying to help poor farmers who really spend their entire life and devote every single one of their moments to growing produce in a really healthy and traditional way. So I think, you know, most of it revolves around not focusing on what your country has to offer, and instead going to, you know, really fancy or expensive or international ingredients. You know, and there's this, I love Japanese food, for example, but Japanese products are obviously imported and they go through a lot of processes to reach us. And while I love eating Japanese food, I feel that these kind of ingredients are used more and more and more instead of, going back to the roots. And to be honest with you, what I love in a couple of restaurants that I've been to in Romania lately, and it's something completely new to the Romanian food industry, is the fact that they go back, to the simplest of ingredients, like beans, which are, we've got so many traditional dishes around beans. Why don't we use them more?
Mm-hmm.
And, all these simple, but beautiful ingredients. And they're also super nutritious.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I feel like we're doing that here a bit, where actually, no, not a bit. I definitely feel like if you look at the top restaurants in this city, and I would say Canada wide, or at least the major cities like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, the more cosmopolitan cities, that is really what's curating these menus, is hyper local and
Mm-hmm.
really, really simple, but really beautiful dishes. And I was introduced to a company locally run by two women. I'll give them a quick shout out here. Their name are Shira and Jana. They run a company called Grain. And what they're doing is they're offering to the market very fresh, hyper local pulses and legumes that I think most of us in Canada didn't even know that we produce, like chickpeas. I had no idea that we
Mm-hmm.
chickpeas, or lentils, like beautiful lentils grow in Canada. And it's really interesting. And then there's like farro and wheat berries and things like that, which I absolutely adore. And I think they're great in many, many dishes. But it's interesting now to see products like that populate menus, and them celebrating, again, like you mentioned, the terroir, what we have naturally here. And I don't know what you know about Western Canada. So where I am on the west coast of Canada, we have an abundance of beautiful products here. Not only do we have great wineries, pardon me, in the
Mm-hmm.
interior of BC, but we also have some great farmland that produces some fantastic product. And I feel like for a while, restaurants had the same mentality as you just mentioned, of like using the foie gras and the truffles and those things. Those are all great and they're delicious.
Exactly.
But
But
there's so much value in just celebrating what's in your backyard, literally. And
yeah.
there's been a paradigm shift here. So I think the food itself, and the people that are in charge of it, is slowly going down the right path and celebrating what we have locally. But then there's the other characteristics of the industry that are really lagging, which is like the culture and the people and the discrepancy between what a product costs and what a restaurant can charge for it. And I'd love for you to kind of articulate what it's like in Romania and then in Austria as well. Does that exist, that discrepancy? Because right here, right now, and I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, margins are so small because food is getting really expensive, and users, being the public, they're not going to spend $85 on a plate. So the restaurant ends up eating a lot of that cost. So is there a large discrepancy in the places that you visit with your friends and with your boyfriend to go and eat? Is there a large discrepancy between what that plate's costing to produce and what they can actually afford to charge for it?
So I definitely think that's the case, especially if you focus on like hyper local,
Mm-hmm.
because hyper local comes with a higher cost, right? Because it's really cool and people want that, consumers want that, and there's a really big demand for it. But yeah, I mean, when your country produces, sorry, um, a, beans and lentils and chickpeas and all of that, and you end up charging, I don't know, a 20 euro fee for a little bean-based dish,
Mm-hmm.
then of course, the margin is huge. But that doesn't bother me if I know that the restaurant staff is being paid accordingly. Because at
100%.
the end of the day, you as a consumer, you pay for an experience. So the reason why I go to fine dining restaurants is to have that fantastic experience, to experience the amazing customer service, to experience really creative dishes, to experience most of the time this hyper local and interpretation of the chef of these super local ingredients. And that's really exciting. But as I said, yeah, as long as you know that
Mm-hmm.
the back end of that matters a lot to me, to
Yeah.
know that things are doing really well in the back end.
Yeah. Do you feel like you are an anomaly though? Do you feel like, um, your education and your desire to know what goes into a dish allows you to be more prepared to pay a little bit more for a plate? Is the general population in your region educated enough that this is why this plate costs this much? Because I think that's the issue right now in Canada, is because we can't charge too much because people just won't pay for it. So
Mhm.
we need to do a better job of educating the public of what goes into producing a dish of halibut. Halibut is extremely expensive, and you, you can't charge $25 for a plate of halibut. You need to charge 35 or 45, maybe even
Mhm.
$50 to make your margin. So do you feel like your mindset is unique, or are most of your friends and your community aware of what it costs to put a really good plate together?
I don't think there's enough awareness of that, unfortunately. And I think this is why there are a lot of great restaurants that open and that are very innovative, but that close down after 6 months or a year because consumers are not willing to do it. And actually, last year I was talking to one of my favorite Romanian chefs who runs a fabulous restaurant. It was kind of the first restaurant that was trying to take Romanian food, which is super meat based and very, raw, and it's tasty, but it's heavy and fatty and really, oof. And he basically tried to refine it, and it was kind of the start of this new Romanian cuisine, if you want to call it that. I mean, if you want to follow the Danish trends and so on, Nordic.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but um,
Just like the education piece, are people educated enough, or do we need to do a better job of having those conversations? And if so,
I
how?
do think we need to do a better job at educating the masses. Yeah, sorry, actually, because I had forgotten my train of thought. But
Okay.
when I was talking to him, he was he was mentioning the fact that his dishes do cost a bit more than your average restaurant in Bucharest, and you can understand why, because he was explaining this to me about like a demi-glace. Like it takes hours and hours and hours to produce that. So, in other restaurants, they may sell it for, half the price or even less than that, but they add a little bit of flour and they thicken it, and that's it. You don't just reduce that stock until it turns into this beautiful thing.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's also one of the things that I'm trying to somehow tackle through my Instagram posts and through my blog as well, and kind of, make it really easy to understand that the restaurant industry is a very difficult industry, and there are so many things that you need to pay for and so much time that goes into all of that it's normal for food to be more expensive, and it's normal to go to a restaurant when you want to celebrate it and not every other day. And that's if you go to a restaurant and you find it really cheap, it might not actually use the best ingredients or the best techniques to cook that food.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm just really challenged by it, and I would love to talk to you more about this and figure out how we can work together to help create that change, create that education piece, and create a platform to speak to the masses. And the cool thing about this show is we're now speaking to close to 10,000 people worldwide, which is great. So there's a lot of people hearing this, but I think we need to talk to more people. So as you're answering that question, I'm thinking, what can Ioana and I do as restaurant consultants, restaurant strategists? You have your blog. Like, what can we be doing to really allow for dialogue to be had and create a platform for chefs and restaurateurs and farmers to come on and really say, like, hey, just so you know, this is what goes into the products that you're either open to paying a lot for, or you're challenged to pay a lot for. And I think one thing that really challenges me in this space right now is the discrepancy between affordability of healthy food and those that can afford to consume it
Mhm.
and those that can't. And my big reason for what I do is my goal that when I die, somehow, some way, I facilitated making really good, nutritious food available for those that generally can't afford it. I don't know how I'm going to get there yet, but that's my goal. I just think it's such a like a sociological issue that we have that it's families that can't afford it, that need it probably the most, that are maybe unhealthy and suffering a bit from different diseases or different issues, they're forced to eat unhealthy food when they really need the healthy food, but there's that price discrepancy. So I wonder if more conversations like this, your blog, your Instagram posts, will start to facilitate more of a change. And then if it gets to a critical mass where everyone understands and those that can afford it pay for it, it'll slowly help to bring the price down. That's my hope.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's I think it's sad, you know, that unhealthy food is more affordable than healthy food.
Mm-hmm.
In all actuality, if we were all educated on like cooking at home,
Mm-hmm.
we could create fabulous dishes with very, very cheap ingredients. There are so many, and that's really an area that I don't feel is being explored enough, at least not in Europe. You always end up, you know, with fries on your table and still, you know, unhealthy food. If you get it from a takeaway or if you do it at home, still unhealthy, fatty, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But I think from one perspective, there's a lot of education that needs to be done in terms of what you can do at home. I think overall restaurants should be a lot more transparent about their practices. I think it's not really happening. And unfortunately, it's most of the time, you know, just either chains or really famous fine dining Michelin star restaurants that put a lot of emphasis on storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can help, you know, understand why you might be paying a little bit more for this, because you understand the process that goes into preparing that food. You understand the story of whomever produces it. And you understand what they have to do in order to produce it. And you understand, you know, how a produce may change over time and why it's best to work with, you know, local producers, for example, rather than import stuff, because flavor and nutritional values get lost with time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what? I was thinking this the other day. I was speaking with a potential client and I was saying, I think we need to do the opposite. Instead of driving people into restaurants right now, I think we need to drive people back into their homes, and we need to educate them on how to cook, because I think with that it's a long game, meaning it's a investment now for the future. So if we really promote and educate people, like you said, in regards to how to cook at home, how to take a leek and really stretch it out,
Mm-hmm.
right? Really, like, a leek is not expensive, fantastic product, so versatile. But if we educate people and we send them back into their homes and we give them the tools that they need to cook delicious food with local products, they will then, I think, have a complete paradigm shift and understanding, wow, like, it was fun and it was cool, but that was a lot of work and a
But
lot
yeah,
more
that's the
dedication.
problem.
But
That's
but
the
I,
problem.
but I think that is the problem, but it's the beauty, because if they understand the work that goes into it, then they'll be driven back to the restaurants with a level of appreciation. And that appreciation will cause, then, you know what, I don't mind spending $5 more
Yeah.
or €5 more, because I know now viscerally what went into it, because I went through it. Whereas right now there's no exposure to it. They're not exposed to what does it take to make a demi-glace. Not everyone's going to go home and make a demi-glace, I get that, but what does it take to roast a whole chicken? What does it
Mm-hmm.
take to make a sofrito? Like, all these things people need to be able to comprehend, and right now we're so ignorant. That's a broad stroking statement. Obviously we're not all so ignorant, but I think as the masses, we're very blind to what it takes. So we can educate ourselves in our home. I think long term, globally, that would really help the restaurant industry, because it would force people to truly understand what it takes to create a plate. That's just my thought.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. But the problem is there's a gap between, you know, the eagerness of people to actually go to the supermarket and buy ingredients and cook at home. And, you know, I mean, yeah, once you get them to cook at home and they understand all the effort that
Mm-hmm.
needs to go into that, that's fine. And I think then restaurants can leverage that. But yeah, how can we make them cook more at home? And I think an answer to that would be, just the increasing accessibility to these kitchen gadgets and tools that make your life easier. Like, for example, I got a pressure cooker not so long ago, and it's made my life incredibly easy, because instead of having to boil, a soup or a bone broth or something like that for hours and hours and hours, and your house gets all steamy and you just want to leave, you just do it in half an hour, and it's very tasty, and it's still fine, and it's minimal effort. And in that half an hour, you can actually, go walk your dog, go do your grocery shopping, go to the post office to do whatever, just get on with your life.
Yeah, I think sharing what we would call, what I would call like a life, like a hack, if you will, like hacking life. So just finding ways to like deviate around, but still get to the same end result, but find different ways to do it. I would also say that food is becoming very, very sexy globally. With it's just popular in media now. Like looking at Netflix and all the success of all those Netflix shows, and really highlighting chefs and food. And people are really, really intrigued by that. People that maybe don't even dine out that often are sitting there and they're super engaged in these shows. Excuse me. And that's why I feel like this podcast, Netflix shows, and certain other major media channels that are really doubling down on food has a really great effect on telling that story. And I think it's only helping to perpetuate where we need to be going with our food, which is a better understanding of how what we eat truly affects our environment and our economy. And then hopefully what we'll see again is an appreciation grown deeper and deeper for the people that produce our food. I've said it on the show a few times, and I hope I'm right. I think that I am. Right now, chefs are the rock stars. I think you mentioned that as well. You feel like chefs are like super cool, like movie stars. I feel like 3 years from now, 5 years from now, it's going to be farmers. And I think that is super appropriate as well. I've met a few through this podcast and just through my work. And if it wasn't for them, none of this would exist. None of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a big shame, because unfortunately, I feel like local farmers are kind of slowly dying out. And thankfully, in the EU, there's a lot that is getting done from the EU. So I think local farmers get a lot more subsidies and so on. So it's really like the EU is trying to encourage this more and more. But the sad thing is when you go to a supermarket, for example, in Romania, where you've got, honestly, the most amazing tomatoes that I've not been able to find anywhere else. Probably in that part of the world, you can find them, like around Romania. In Austria, you can sometimes, but I mean, juicy, sweet, just perfect, And in a country like that, you go to the supermarket, and your only options for tomatoes are, imported from Spain, from, I've seen from the Netherlands. The Netherlands are not exactly a country where they grow tomatoes today. And it makes me so sad. And that's a problem, because also farmers markets, I find that they're very hot at the moment. They're very hot within, what I called foodies and what you would call food lovers. But it's still, and for example, in Vienna, food markets are considerably more expensive than supermarkets. And people still go. The problem is you need to wake up early on a Saturday, and because they close down at like 2 p.m., everything is empty and everyone's gone. So if you don't wake up early on a Saturday morning, that's your chance gone.
Are you not an early morning person?
Semi. Now lately I've been more of a morning person.
Okay. Is that because of work? Is that because of just lifestyle, or what's changed that?
I don't know. Actually, it's definitely not, because during the week I do wake up early and get my stuff done, and then, get cooking, or I take a break during the day to go to the market or something like that. But it's, it's always a commitment to have to do something on a Saturday morning when you kind of feel lazy. And even if you wake up early, you kind of feel like, I'm just gonna have a coffee and I'm gonna make some brunch, and you wake
Yeah.
up at 8 and then it gets to like midday and you've done nothing apart from
Yeah.
had a coffee.
I guess we're lucky that way now that we have a small baby in the house. She doesn't really allow for us to be lazy in the morning. So the farmer's market's great for us because like it does start early. I think it starts at 8 or 9, and I think it's done by 2 or 3. But yeah, it's amazing just that watching that progress over the last, I'd say, 3 to 5 years. It's gone from a very successful business model to a like hyper successful. I mean, I think in 3 to 5 years they've probably tripled or doubled their vendors, which
That's
is great.
fantastic.
And it's great for the local farms. They can get in there and get exposure.
Mhm.
And I had someone on the other day who has a has a cattle farm, and they do grass-fed, grass-finished beef, and they're doing it really the right way. And he was just saying how much they rely on the farmers market and how great it's been for them as a business, and expose them to so many people and restaurants as well. Now I've heard about
Mhm.
them, which is really, really cool. So the farmers market is fantastic, and something really cool that they do here. I don't know if you could maybe this is something you could do as a restaurant strategist and take it to the farmers market team. They have what they call here a coupon program. So
Mhm.
you can donate to the coupon program, and the coupon program then goes to applicants that are living below like the social and economical level, so they can't afford to go shop at the farmers
Mhm.
markets. Those coupons are then given to those families so they can go and experience and shop at the farmers market. So I think it's so great.
That's
Again,
fantastic.
again, it's bridging that gap, like I was saying earlier, between that affordability of healthy food and non-affordability. So it just allows for socially to be on the same level, which I think is great. So I don't know if that's something you could maybe suggest to the farmers markets there. Maybe something cool to put your name on. But it's something really progressive here that I'm proud that they're doing locally, and helping to bridge that gap, because it is a human right to eat in my mind, and no one should have to eat unhealthy food.
I agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree.
I see you're sipping on some wine. I see it as white wine. What are you drinking? Are you very particular in your wines, or you just, as long as it's cold, you're ready to drink it?
No, I'm quite particular. Although I this time I tried this bio white wine from Austria. It's a Gruner Veltliner. It's
Ooh,
called.
okay.
It's an Austrian grape variety, and actually it's quite nice and quite complex. But
Yeah.
I've got a massive crush on Georgian wines. I went traveling to Georgia this October, and there's a a fantastic selection of wines, and they're fantastic with like orange wines and natural wines, and
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
it's really, really incredible, and nobody really talks about it, but apparently the exports have been like growing considerably.
Oh, wow. And for those that are listening, she's not talking about Atlanta, Georgia, like the state Georgia. She's talking about Europe, old school Georgia, not Georgia here in North America. Um, Ioana, this show is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcasts. So I have for you 2 questions that I ask every single guest. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, but I'm confident you can handle it. The first question I have for you is the half a dozen have tos. Stay with me here. I need from you 1 to half a dozen, so 1 to 6 items of things you've experienced in your life, food related or not, that you feel like our listeners have to do, whether it is a trip to Georgia to try their wine, whether it is an education piece, reading a book or a certain cookbook, whether it is a certain wine they need to try, whether it is a country they need to visit. What are 1 to half a dozen things that you've experienced in your life that you feel like our listeners have to experience?
Cool. Okay. Yeah, sure. So 1 to 6.
1 to 6. You can do 1 or you can do 6. Yeah.
Okay. No, I need to think a little bit,
Yes.
but definitely experience a Georgian supra, since we were talking about Georgia.
Hmm.
So a supra is a traditional Georgian feast. And basically, if you're traveling to Georgia, you'll find out that the people are incredibly, incredibly friendly. And, you just have to feel comfortable and to just talk to them. And you might just end up being invited for dinner for this feast in the evening. And it's fantastic because they basically have a tradition around it where they have a Toastmaster whose name is Tamada. And you can only drink when the tamada says something, and the tamada needs to make I don't know how many exact toasts, and it's just the most fantastic experience in the world. And I thankfully had the chance to experience that completely randomly, and
That sounds amazing.
it's really incredible. But apart, in the Georgia bit,
Yes.
wine, particularly orange wine, which is something that's, I don't know how popular it is in Canada and North America, but it's something that's kind of growing in popularity in Europe as well.
Yeah, same here. I think right now, that the whole bio wine, natural wine is slowly starting. It definitely has its following, and orange wine is slowly coming. Although I think people, I'm not a drinker, admittedly, I don't drink, but I know the people locally that are into wine are almost slow to take to it, the orange wine thing. But I think it's going to become quite popular here in the next little bit, especially this summer. But we'll wait and see.
Yeah, it's actually really fantastic. And the thing is, it really depends on the producer, because it can really be as complex as a red wine. And you can have it, with red meat, and it's really, really something.
Amazing. You look really excited about it. So that's really cool.
Oh,
I like
God, yeah.
that. That's awesome. Any other have-tos that you have?
Okay, so another one would be to, is that legal now or illegal, to have haggis,
Oh,
which
yeah,
is
yeah. Yeah, you can have haggis.
this Scottish thing? Because I know that in the States, and I think it's illegal in some states.
Oh, really? Yeah,
I
no,
think
it's
so.
as far as I know, I think either I dreamt about haggis like 2 nights ago, or I actually was somewhere and they were serving haggis. I think I dreamt. Why am I dreaming about haggis? But anyway, yeah, I believe haggis is, you can serve it, you can eat it, no issues in Canada, as far as I know.
I personally think it's a fabulous thing, and a lot of chefs really play with that ingredient to turn it into a really refined dish. For example, what I do as well is you make croquettes with it, and you coat them in gingerbread and fry them, and then have them with
Gingerbread,
vegetables, and wow, it's so fantastic.
beautiful. Is
Because
there a
it's really, really fragrant anyway, because it's got like cloves and cinnamon and nutmeg and all of that. So gingerbread really, works very well.
It sounds delicious. Would there be a photo of a version of that you've done on your blog or on your Instagram?
Yeah, actually, there's, I think, even a blog post about my reinterpretation of haggis. And actually, Burns Day, which is the, Scottish
Robbie
haggis
Burns.
day,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly, is coming up next week. So it's on the 25th, I think, of January.
So very appropriate. Get your haggis on.
Exactly.
Any other have-tos you want to share?
So the other one would be to read Gastrophysics by Professor Charles Spence, which is honestly the most exciting food book that I've ever read in my life. It's all about science and how, round plates can make things taste sweeter. Well, your perception of the taste sweeter, and why, for example, why do you drink tomato juice on planes? And it's because loud noises make umami flavor more intense. So, being on a plane, you've got the engine sound, and tomatoes having a bit of umami flavor, they enhance, well, it all gets enhanced.
That's so cool.
It's just the most interesting book.
Gastrophysics?
Gastrophysics, yeah.
Cool. And the author was, again, sorry?
Professor Charles Spence.
Awesome. We'll check that one out.
Got a
That's
lab
really cool.
in Oxford Uni.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Any other have-tos, or is that it?
Let me think. Can I quickly turn and look at my books?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, please do. Yeah, go.
It's very difficult. Oh yeah, actually, have dinner at Tim Raue in Berlin.
Ooh, beautiful.
Which, I mean, it's an investment. Actually, don't have dinner, have lunch, because it's a lot more affordable, and you can try all the classics. And it is really fantastic food. And you've seen him on Chef's Table, most probably. It's exactly my type of food.
Yeah.
Asian with a bit of a twist and with kind of somewhat local ingredients. Fabulous.
I like that one. Get to Berlin. I like that a lot. The last question I have for you is the half a dozen haven't yets. So same rules, 1 to 6, kind of a bucket list, if you will, of 1 to 6 items that you have yet to do, but you want to do, whether it's a meal you haven't had yet, a trip you haven't taken, a book you haven't read, a piece of art you haven't looked at, a song you haven't heard. 1 to 6 haven't yets.
Okay, let me think. So last year I had the amazing again, let me go back to a little story. So I have a bucket list of various things that I want to take off and kind of small achievements that I want to achieve. And one of them was to be able to put together some recipes for a restaurant. And I did that last year. I developed some recipes specifically for this restaurant in Bucharest, and it was very exciting. It's, a casual restaurant. I would like to be able to bring a little bit more input into something more fine dining.
Okay.
So that would definitely be on my bucket list.
If there's someone listening right now in Canada, in Vancouver, and they're super intrigued by you and they reach out, are you open to working with them?
Yeah, of course.
Cool. The international restaurant strategist. I like it. Any other?
I work remotely, so.
Yeah, exactly. That's a beautiful thing about this. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's great. The world is a very small place right now, which at times is a beautiful thing, at times a challenging thing for us socially. But when it comes to businesses like yours and like mine, it's great that we can impact people all over the world that want to work with us, or that we want to work with, which is really, really unique and powerful. Any other haven't yet? That was a great one. That's so cool that you're able to curate some dishes for a restaurant. That's fantastic.
So another one would be to actually read, because I've got it here, René Redzepi's new fermentation book.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds so fabulous. And I'm a graphic designer originally. And that book also has a beautiful, beautiful design. So that's definitely something that I want to explore more, not just because of the design, but because it's René Redzepi, and he's probably my biggest inspiration.
Yeah, is he? Yeah. Are you familiar with the Mad Symposium?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I've been following.
Yeah, so that's on my bucket list. Excuse me, that's on my bucket list to attend a Mad Symposium in the next, hopefully, 2 years. We have one locally called the Terroir Symposium in Toronto, which is very highly attended. And actually, René Redzepi spoke at the Terroir Symposium a few years ago. I think actually before the Mad Symposium was even invented, he came to Canada first and experienced a symposium here. But yeah, I'm a big fan of his, as I think everyone in food is right now. He's a brilliant, brilliant man and has done so much great things for the industry. Is Noma 2.0 on your bucket list?
It is on my bucket list.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Definitely. Yeah. Most definitely. I'm still trying to find that, sweet spot when I know it's fine and I'm happy to, it's a commitment in terms of like your budget. But I'm trying to find that sweet spot where I know I can actually find a seat, because, his restaurant openings happen every 4 months or so, or every 3 months or whatever. And then like, it's almost, like booking tickets for Glastonbury in the UK, where the moment they open, everybody's just, booking quickly.
Yeah, we're actually heading to New York here in April. I've never been, and I cannot wait. And I'm looking to go to 11 Madison Park. Are you familiar with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but same kind of thing. They only allow an 8-week booking window on their website. So we're going in April. So I haven't had a chance yet to get on there and book it. So I'm like waiting for my day to log on and hopefully get a seat. I really want to experience that. But same thing, that is a commitment, but an experience that I hope we can get into when we go to New York. And New York's such a great city for food. There's so many fantastic restaurants there. Sorry, I kind of interrupted. Any other haven't yet that you want to share?
I would say, and it probably is my last, because I'd have to think for like 5 minutes I have like millions, but I need to
Yeah.
really think about it. I would say that I mean actually two. One being traveling to Mexico to discover all the foods, related to René Redzepi, all the food that he discovered when he was there, and really eat proper tacos, because they're not a thing in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And you just get the, loaded American style ones. And I just want to experience a proper taco that I haven't made myself, following like Enrique Olvera's recipe or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the other country would be Peru, where, it's the same. I have a massive crush on Nikkei cuisine. So Japanese, Peruvian, it's
Yeah, actually, I had I did an interview yesterday with a woman by the name of Joanne Sasvari. She's a local Canadian author, a cookbook author, and she was telling me about the Japanese food and the sushi in particular in Lima, and how it was some of the best that she's ever had. And we're spoiled here in Vancouver. We have a large Asian population. The New York Times wrote about a small suburb outside of Vancouver having the best Chinese food in the world outside of China.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're really, really spoiled here with our Asian influence on our food. And the Japanese food here is fantastic as well, because of our location to fresh ocean water. The seafood is super fresh. So the sushi is amazing and quite affordable. But she was saying that Lima, because of its location, is some of the best sushi that she's ever had. And I had never even considered that. That never even been on my radar. But I also have heard from a few people that Latin America is just where you need to go with food right now. It's just amazing there. So I need to get
it feels like a massive trend as well. And I do presume somehow René Redzepi had something to do with it, but also, Chef's Table and all of that, it's really made Mexican, Peruvian, so on, food a lot more accessible to the world. Well, just to learn about it. And
yeah, I think for so long it's been all about Italy and all about France as far as being like the cornerstone of food and cooking. And it's interesting now to look at a completely different flavor profile from what they've been doing in Mexico and South America, Latin America for arguably just as long and maybe even longer than some of the recipes in Italy and France. So it's really nice to see them being highlighted. And I love Mexican food. And if you want to come to Vancouver, there's great Mexican food here as well. We have a big Mexican population.
Sounds good. I really need to visit Canada at some point.
Yeah, well, hey, you've got a friend now in Vancouver, and I would love to dine with you. It'd be amazing. I'd be really intrigued to actually have you as a guest and take you around to some restaurants here, because our dining scene here is fantastic, but very different. Like the fine dining scene, there's not a lot of white tablecloths in our city. The food has become a lot more approachable. But there are still there's a few that still exist that are really truly embodying what fine dining is, and I hope and I pray that those smaller independent restaurants can stick it out, because they truly are special and they make our city unique. Yeah, if you ever find yourself itching to come to North America, please do look me up. I'd love to link up with you. It'd be great to share a meal or two or 10.
We'll definitely do. And by the way, whenever I mention fine dining, to me, actually, that's a good kind of definition to have.
Okay.
It's not the white tablecloths. It's really about the food. To me, fine dining is really refined, contemporary cooking that can be done in a very, very informal kind of setting. And that's usually my favorite. I dislike these restaurants where you have to,
where it's stuffy. Yeah. I think even that though, even like the refined plates, I think there are only a few spots in town where you really can get that, where they're doing things that are truly outside of the box. Not to sit here and say we're not doing amazing refined food in Vancouver, because in places we are, but I think there's some hesitation as an industry for us to push those boundaries and push those palettes of the public. And it's just easy to do what we know works as an industry. But I hope that through conversations like this with you and like others on my podcast, we can really evoke those emotions again and have people step out a bit and get uncomfortable when it comes to their food, both as consumers, but both as producers as well. So I think that's where we start again to really push ourselves forward as an industry. We have to explore those things and use those pressure cookers and cook those. I think it was veal tongue you were doing.
Oh yeah, I was cooking veal tongue. Actually, it surprisingly, my two favorite dishes from my childhood are veal tongue and brains.
Oh, wow. Veal brains?
So I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
Okay.
So the brains are kind of like a schnitzel. Like you don't,
How?
flatten it,
Hmm.
but you do that like beautiful breadcrumb coating and deep fry them, and they're so good. You put a bit of lemon on top, and they're so good. And
That's
the veal
delicious.
tongue, the Romanian way to do it is with a tomato and olive sauce, which is
Oh.
like the simplest sauce in the world. But I don't know why restaurants out there make complicated meat
Mhm.
dishes when you can, And this sauce is like it's so versatile that you can literally have it with any vegetable or with any kind of vegetable dumpling. I would say I made it last week with leek dumplings.
Hmm. Yeah, you know what? I ate a lot of that when I used to live in London, England, and I remember eating a lot of tomato. It was tomato, onion, olives, parsley, and it just like the saltiness from the olives played so well with the tomato. Yeah, it was beautiful and very versatile. Like you said, you could put it on chicken, you could put it on steak, you could put it on pasta. So versatile, but so simple.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
rustic. Very rustic. I want to take a moment to say thank you so much again for coming on, Ioana. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm very fortunate on this podcast that for some reason people are extremely generous with their time. And I would venture a guess that if it wasn't for this podcast, it wasn't for social media, you and I may never have met, but we just did. And we spent the last hour and 11 minutes together. So thank you so much for sharing your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I hope you and I can stay connected and share more stories as you and I both go through this world of food and understanding best how we can help the industry and help the world when it comes to food. So thank you so much for giving your time to myself and to the listeners. I really, really appreciated your input and loved hearing your story.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was really lovely chatting with you, and I feel like we could have easily done this for like 6 hours.
Yeah, no, me as
There's
well.
always so much that can.
There is so much. You know what? I would be more than happy to have you on again. I think again, like your story is great. Your passion is palpable. I can feel it and I can see it when you talk about food, and that's how I am as well. I love this industry. I love this space. I love everyone involved in it, and I love that I have the opportunity with this podcast to bring people like you on because it re-energizes me, and I think it re-energizes a lot of our listeners and motivates people to make a change. So thank you so much for inspiring me today. Thank you so much for inspiring a lot of our listeners. Please keep doing what you do. If people do want to reach out and they do want to contact you, how best they do that?
I would say probably Instagram or my direct blog would be the easiest way. So just Berries and Spice on Instagram, and berriesandspice.com is my blog.
Amazing. Ioana Negelescu, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in as you do week after week. If it wasn't for you guys, this show would not exist. I appreciate and love you all sincerely. Until next time, guys, be good and do good. That's it. We did it. It's done. Thank you.
Fabulous.